What would you discover about yourself if you stopped talking for 50 days? My guest today found out. Sandra Brodie walked away from a high-flying corporate career to spend a year living in a remote Guatemalan jungle. She came out the other side with a clarity that has shaped everything since. This is Through Your Lens, and this is Sandra Brodie. Sandra Brodie, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Now, when you look at your website, your resume, it reads impeccably. It's beautiful corporate work that you've done. It's amazing titles like COO, founder. Where did this all come from? Who were you in school? Were you like the class captain, school leader? Was it always that way, or has it developed over time?
A bit of both. So definitely at school, I was studious and academic and kind of had that, I guess, intrinsic leadership vibe in me. And it developed certainly over time, particularly through mentors that I had in my life. So I'd probably say, particularly in terms of inspiring the career journey and trajectory that I ended up taking, was a person that I met during my time at school. He's actually the father of my boyfriend at the time, so my first high school boyfriend. When I left school, again, because I had that sort of academic vibe, I was really excited to go to university. And so I enrolled in a double degree at Monash University to do business and psychology. Didn't know what I wanted to do, thought it was broad enough. Got really excited about what uni would be like. Got 8 months into my degree and it was a total flop. I ended up becoming really disillusioned with what university life was. So for somebody that was quite structured and had that kind of pathway mapped out of what I would do, the corporate sort of journey, it was a big deal for me. So I dropped out because I felt very disconnected from the content, and that what they were teaching was from textbooks in the 1970s, and I was in these giant lecture halls with 400 people, nobody paying attention. And I couldn't make the connection as to how is this going to help me in my career journey? Am I here just for my piece of paper 4 years in? And if I don't understand the why, I'm a person that really struggles with that. So I dropped out of uni, and my boyfriend's father, Greg, retired from AFL. So he was quite a successful AFL player. And in those days—
Greg who?
Greg Williams was his name, yes.
For those playing at home. Yep.
Yes. In those days when you retired from footy, people still worked. So he started his own business, which was a printing business. And he could see that I was lost in terms of what am I going to do next? You know, dropping out was a big deal for me. And he said, why don't you come and work for me in my printing business? So I have to admit, at the time, I didn't think it was the most compelling idea because I didn't know anything about printing. But I thought, I don't know what I want to do. So I went and worked for him and pretty quickly discovered how much I loved business, but the practical side of that. So I started out in reception answering phones and pretty quickly became really curious about how the rest of the business worked. So I learned a little bit about accounts. I learned about marketing, got very curious about what was actually happening in production. So I learned how the printing presses worked. I do Saturday overtime shifts and learn how to pick and pack and vacuum seal stock, all this kind of stuff. And then from time to time, I'd sit down with Greg and we'd have these conversations about his life and how he had gotten to where he'd gotten, the adversity that he had overcome, and how he'd gone about creating this business. So I learned a lot from him in terms of that you can come from humble beginnings and start something incredibly successful. He was a very humble leader, which that really stuck with me. It stuck with me my whole life. And so through that experience, he actually inspired me to go back to university, but I ended up studying Australia's first entrepreneurship degree, which was at RMIT at the time. And that sort of ultimately led me down a path of innovation, entrepreneurship, and ultimately now to creating my own business. But he was quite a pivotal figure in that process, and I guess showing me that there are different pathways to just the black and white. You're either white collar corporate, even though my career can look corporate because there's some big brands in there. I've done quite unconventional held quite unconventional positions within that stream. So it's not just white collar corporate or blue collar trade, which is sort of what I grew up with. It's like one or the other. He'd coloured outside the lines of that and gone and, you know, had an incredibly successful sporting career and then created this business from nothing. And so that, really inspired me down that kind of career path.
Amazing. And for those at home who don't know who Greg Williams is, he's an ex-AFL player who was not just any player. He's one of the greats. Like he was a Brownlow medalist.
Dual Brownlow medalist.
Yeah. Very, high performer in the highest regard in that field. What you've, from that experience to your corporate life, I imagine you would have rubbed shoulders with a lot of high performers. What was it about Greg and others you've seen that you sort of note down and go, oh, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Or that's how they behave, or that's how they interact. Are there any
themes in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think each person, I'm very inspired by individuals. Like I become quite galvanized towards certain people and I like to learn from them. And I've found each has their own flavor, if you like. So with Greg, I think it was very much that he had created a career that was very different to anything I had ever known or seen. Not many people know that when he was younger, he had a lot of issues with his legs. He actually had calipers on his legs. And so people, told him that he wouldn't run and, he goes on to become one of the greatest AFL players of all time. And so there was something in that about not allowing other people's views to become limiting beliefs and just having a go. So I really took that from him and then took the lesson in leading with humility. So despite all of his success, he was and still is one of the most humble people that you'll ever meet and really leads from the front. And so those are qualities that I took from him. And then from other leaders, there was one in particular at my time at Deloitte who was unapologetically himself, very different to the norm inside a corporate structure, but didn't even attempt to try and fit in. And so it was about embracing the uniqueness of who you are and breaking convention. I think that's probably the theme. The people that I have met along the way have not been afraid to break convention and create something new and different.
Yeah.
And that's what's really attracted me to those people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Going back to your studies when you went back to university and you're a high achiever again, you smashed it out of the park. The CEO of Deloitte came to you, Deloitte Digital.
Yes.
And by the way, again, Deloitte is like one of the largest professional services firms in the world, started in 1845.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the CEO of Deloitte Digital is knocking on your door and going, we want to work with you, or we want you as part of our team. What was that experience like? What was that like going into such a huge firm and, starting from scratch there?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. So he's actually another quite a foundational person in my journey. His name's Pete Williams.
Related?
No, I know, but I often think about that, the two Williamses. So in my final year of my entrepreneurship degree, there were two streams that you could go down. So one was if you already had a business idea, you would go down the entrepreneurship route and you'd basically be taken through a process of launching that business into something. If you didn't have that, you could go the intrapreneurship route, which was that you would go and do a project inside an entity and help them to launch something from scratch or commercialize a business idea. And so that was at Deloitte Digital. And so we got broken up into groups and got given an idea that Deloitte Digital was genuinely considering turning into something. I led a small team and basically won the challenge, did a great job with what the project that I was given, and Pete was the person that was leading it from the Deloitte Digital side. Yeah. So he was he's such an interesting character. He's the person I spoke of earlier that is very unconventional, not afraid to be himself. So professional services firm, very corporate, and he had a mullet. He would wear these wild T-shirts. He swore like a sailor. And he'd come in the office some days and he'd be juggling while he was talking to you. Like, he was just that kind of wild character.
Yeah.
He was an accountant by background, mind you, but
Right.
that
Not
was
your regular
his,
accountant.
not your regular accountant.
Yeah.
So, incredible person to learn from, and he's quite well known as an innovator in the Australian marketplace. And so he sort of tapped me on the shoulder at the end of that and said, "What are you going to do, when you finish this course?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure." And he said, "Come and work for me."
Yep.
And so there was no real role. He just made one up. And it was a bit of a, I've got ideas about what we want to do. We've got these projects that could turn into something at Deloitte Digital. I think you're a person that could come in and help us launch those. So that's how my career at Deloitte Digital started.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what sort of did you feel empowered in those early stages? Like, I can do this. I fit in's probably the wrong word, because clearly he's running his own game. But what did you learn in those early stages of working such a massive company?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because we were part of the larger national and global corporate structure, but we were this little incubator in there of all these kind of misfits. And that was because that's who Pete attracted, and the team that he was trying to build was about disrupting from within. And so in some ways, I felt like I fit in because it was a bit different, but it was certainly a process of Pete was forever trying to crack me out of my shell and break down the conventional thinking, because, subconsciously when you're raised in a conventional household and you take the conventional path, that stuff is in there of I'm afraid to fail. Yeah. I want to do well.
Play it safe.
Yeah. I want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I want to progress and whatever. And he, you'd then look at him as an example and go, well, he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't done any of the normal stuff, and he is still a successful person.
Yeah.
And so it was role modeling through that process. So I was really fortunate that that's where I started inside the corporate structure, was in this non-corporate entity in there.
Yep. Breaking the mold.
Breaking the mold, yeah.
Did you get any resistance from the larger Deloitte Corporation on things that you and Pete were trying to do, or?
Yeah, well, so the Deloitte Digital sort of grew at the time to, there was probably 20 or 30 of us in the team. And so as an entity, like any, I guess, innovative structure, you always get resistance from people because you're trying to enable change, and change is uncomfortable for people. So there's a combination of people being really excited by that and wanting to know what you're doing and seeing the positive aspects of that change, as well as who are these people that are making my life difficult because they're asking questions type of thing. So
can you just not? Can we just keep doing things the way we've always done them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, Pete himself was quite, a polarizing character. You either loved him and were on board with his way of doing things, or people really didn't like him. So, and he didn't really give a crap, to be honest. So which is part of what made him special. So
cool. And so at some point you said, enough of this corporate world, I'm off to the Guatemalan jungle. That's how your CV reads.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
Yeah. So probably then the most transformative experience of my life. So in parallel to having this thread of innovation, entrepreneurship, trying to follow the non-conventional route in my career, and I grew into a passion and love for creating things. I'd always had this underlying, I guess, thread of wanting to understand why we're here on this earth. So it's a spiritual thread, and quite an introverted person, so spent a lot of time inwardly trying to answer these questions. And so from a young age, when I was about 15, I started reading books about the topic and teaching myself how to meditate. And so it was kind of always there, but I never really knew how to connect it with the outside world. So it was my little inner experience. And then as I got a little bit older, I met more people who shared similar views and interests. And so I felt more empowered to explore it a little bit more openly. And as I did that, those questions of what's the purpose of life, why are we here, what does this all mean, became really loud. And for me, it was like, if I can't answer these in some way, nothing else makes sense. And so I inevitably or ultimately when I was 23 decided I need to spend some time trying to understand my purpose on this earth and I'm going to do it now because I can't wait a minute longer. So at 23, I made that decision. So I quit my job. I'd been at Deloitte for almost 3 years.
Is that scary?
Yeah, it was scary. Massive reaction from my parents at the time. Obviously, amazing career trajectory.
Yeah.
I'd moved into an apartment 3 months before, so I broke my lease, got rid of almost all my possessions. Like, it was quite a bold move. And then packed a bag, and I think I got on 3 planes, 4 chicken buses and 2 boats to get to where I needed to go. Like, it was quite a remote part of Guatemala. And so this school, it's a spiritual school that was there, a friend of mine who I'd met at uni had done a trip around the world to all of these spiritual epicenters, went to this place, had been there for a couple of weeks and said, I think you would love it. And that was it. And it planted a seed in my mind. And so when I thought I need to go and figure this out, that's the place I thought of. And so I landed there.
It's dangerous, isn't it, when people plant those seeds?
It absolutely is, yeah. And they keep coming back.
Yeah.
They keep coming back. Yeah, certainly. They had courses there. So I enrolled in a 1-month course and naively thought, I'll do my 1-month course.
And so when you say spiritual, like school, or what is this? What is it?
Yeah, it's really hard to explain. It's
what is this place?
It is so there's a teacher there and she's a Guatemalan lady. And she has developed a framework of, I guess you could call it Western esoteric topics. So you learn, obviously there's meditation as a key component of that, but you learn about lucid dreaming, you learn about tarot cards, you learn about how to leave your body. Like, it's quite out there type of stuff.
Oh, we could go down a rabbit hole.
We could go down a rabbit hole, and I'm aware probably some people listening are going, what the hell is she talking about? But there's structure to it, and the courses are designed as an introductory is learn how to meditate and be present and breathe, and then you kind of can go deeper.
Yeah.
And so I did the 1-month introductory course and felt like I'd come home, like this was the place I needed to be. And I thought I'd have a month, get the answers to all of my questions and go back home and pick up my life.
Yeah.
But the month just made me want to go deeper, and I ultimately ended up staying there for a year. And so I did some advanced retreats, including a 50-day silent retreat where you're
50?
Yeah.
50 days of silence.
Yeah.
I've heard of 7, but 50?
Yeah, 50 days.
Wow. Did you forget how to talk after that?
Oh, it's really weird when you break the silence.
I
The sound of your voice is really strange.
I bet. What was that like, 50 days of silence? What was going into your head? And did it get louder and then quieter? Or what goes?
It's a bit of a roller coaster. Yeah. So the way that it's designed is that you spend about a month and a half prior to the silence studying a bunch of stuff. And so you fill your mind with concepts, spiritual topics. So you study all these texts and then you stop and then you get nothing coming in. So no reading, no music, nothing. And then you sit in silence. You meditate for 12 hours a day every day and you're sort of semi-fasting. And all of that knowledge and information is kind of whirling in your head. And so the idea is that when you sit in the silence and you sit with those thoughts and concepts and you meditate, that it triggers realizations. So that's the purpose of it. And it does do that depending on how deep you go. Also at the same time, obviously anyone who sat in silence for a few minutes knows that all of your thoughts start rushing into your mind, including everything that's ever happened to you, as the days go by. So it's quite a roller coaster in dealing with your own personal emotions and things that have happened to you in childhood and people that have pissed you off and all of that's there that you're dealing with at the same time as trying to, I guess, understand the nature of reality in these larger kind of concepts. And ultimately those voices start to quieten down and you come, or at least for me, I came to a place of stillness and clarity, and then all of a sudden things would just these questions. It's like almost like in Zen Buddhism, they give you koans to try and, it doesn't make sense, and then suddenly it does make sense. This type of thing.
Do you know when that moment came to you, or you're not really keeping track of days? You're just
not keeping track of days. No. But I have journals because you're allowed to write because that's coming from you, which I've kept, and there's about 30 of them through that time, and it's really interesting going back and reading them now. So
how many people are around you? Are you just seeing each other each day and just like
so
still quiet?
in the course, like in that part of the course, there were 8 of us that went through it, and you're inside at the school. It's sort of walled off from the rest of the town, but you can go in and out as you please. The people in the village, there's no cars in this village. It's a tiny little town. They all know about the school, and so if you're not talking, they understand why. So if you're out there trying to buy your bananas or whatever it is to get by,
they're used to the strange foreigners just being completely silent.
The tortilla lady knows why you're silent. So it's really interesting experience. Like quite obviously pretty wild and left of center in comparison to what I'd come from, but though that experience has stuck with me for my whole life and sort of reshaped how I think about reality, really. And probably some of the biggest things that I learnt through that experience were, I guess, having a direct experience that we are more than just our physical body, and there is more than just this physical plane. And without going into too much depth, I think the result of that is that you get a much bigger perspective on life, and that no matter what happens in this physical plane, everything's okay. There is more than this. And that perspective means that even when you experience adversity or challenge, if you can put yourself into that present state and remember that nothing's ever that bad. And so that's really stuck with me. And then I think also the really firm, deep belief that we are here to learn and grow and evolve, which means, again, when you're presented with challenges, everything's reframed as what can I learn from this? And how do I overcome it for the next thing, as opposed to why is this happening to me? So that was probably the biggest shift in my mindset, was from victim to I'm now empowered.
You're creating.
I'm creating.
You're creating the next step rather than it's happening to you.
Yeah. Huge shift at 23.
Yeah.
It's like
most 23-year-olds are, at the pubs and clubs of Melbourne, and you decide to go to a jungle and be quiet or meditate.
Definitely, It was very difficult coming back.
I bet.
For that reason as well, yeah.
I bet. Yeah. My cousin did a 7-day silent retreat, and I didn't know about this, and I just happened to bump into her as she'd come out of it, like down the street.
Yeah.
So, Kate, how you going?
I
hadn't seen her for she was like, So I can't imagine going from your environment back to Melbourne, the busy streets of Melbourne.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I think people listening to this might have not have expected,
that.
And I think that's awesome. I'm learning things about you as we go. You mentioned lucid dreaming earlier. Can you describe what that is for people who don't know? They might have heard it, but what is lucid dreaming?
Yeah, it's becoming conscious while you're dreaming. So usually you dream and you either remember your dreams or you don't, but if you remember them, you've got flashbacks of images. It's actually waking up in the dream, and so there's different stages of that. So you can wake up in the dream and realize I'm dreaming, and generally when the first time that happens, you wake yourself up because you go, holy crap, I'm in a dream. But then you can actually train yourself to stay conscious in the dream, and then you can do things in the dream, and you can create, and you can go places, and you can do all sorts of things. And
amazing. So an awareness, and then if you're good enough, you can start to control and create in your dream. Yeah. I was given a book, or I heard about it on a podcast. I can't remember. It might be just called Lucid Dreaming.
Possibly, yeah.
It's like one of the most famous lucid dreaming books, and it documents someone who practiced it. Anyway, it was amazing. And if you're out there, just, I know some people are closed off to this.
But
it's wacky. But I actually became lucid when I was really into it and reading the book and conscious about it.
Wow.
I had 1 or 2 lucid dreams, but I snapped out of it very
Straight
quickly.
away, yeah.
But I just had that moment where I was like, hang on, I'm in a dream. Hang on.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was incredible. It was amazing.
Yeah,
and I
'cause you
snapped out of it. I was
just-
like, damn it.
Yeah, holding on to it, it's really
Yeah,
hard. But
yeah.
I just remember when it first happened to me, it's just mind blowing because conceptually, you're like, I am now conscious outside of my body. And that's just, you know, you hear about that stuff, but I think it's the coolest way to experience it, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. It just starts to make you think, of
What's
that
possible.
other, what's possible. And one of the tricks I always found funny to help do it is to, when you're in your dream or before you go to bed, you go, I'll look at my hands in the dream, and that's how I know I'm in the dream.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah,
that's
you
what we
did
got
that.
Taught. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So I think I would go to bed like, okay, if I'm dreaming, like look at my hands, bring my hands up, and that's like a little
trigger.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I think that the interesting thing is it took me a long time when I came back to realize the so what of all this, because it's like, okay, great, you go and have all these experiences. Like, how does that connect to your life and what does it mean? And it's more the underlying themes in that and how you apply them to your life is that tells you that we can exist outside of our consciousness, outside of our bodies. That tells you that there's more to this life. That gives you perspective. That helps you overcome adversity and challenge in your life. Like all of that becomes really practical, which at the beginning for me, it was you're into completely different worlds. I came back into normal reality and I didn't understand how to relate it to anything. I didn't understand how to be around the same people I was around before. How do I go back into a normal job?
Yeah.
So it took years to sort of bring the two things together and go, well, this has actually changed your fundamental worldview and your philosophy on life, which is now driving the decisions you make, the people you spend time with, the way that you deal with challenges. And that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So it's not just what's really fun to do that. It actually changes your life, or at least in my experience it has. So.
Well, you've had this amazing apprenticeship with these mentors who were already breaking the mold, were already courageous and brave to do things differently. And then you've gone to the jungle and meditated and gone, hang on, nothing actually matters. I can give it a go. So when you got back from the jungle, like, obviously it took some adjustment, but where did you find that you could fit in the world again and use all that knowledge and all that freedom of expression? Like, how did you fit back to the world?
Probably took me 10 years, to be honest.
Really? Yeah.
Of just figuring it out and what did the experience mean? What does it mean to my daily life? And I think the biggest thread has been that theme of that if I believe that we're here to learn and grow and evolve, then every choice, every decision I make, every job that I choose to go into, the mentors that I follow, the purpose of doing that is for that transformative growth. And so I think what ended up happening was I didn't really care what I was doing. I cared why and how and who I was doing it with. So that's probably a reason for why have I worked in 10 different industries in my life. Like I've done so many different not just jobs, but I mean, I've kind of been in corporate, I've been in education, I've been in disability, motorsport, vitamins, I'm in energy now. I'm sort of agnostic to the thing as long as it's not harming anyone. So I need to be interested in it and passionate about it. But it's actually that process of what can I learn from this experience and who can I learn from and how do I use that as a propellant for growth and evolution has been how I've sort of integrated that into my life to make it meaningful to me.
We're talking a bit about this off camera, but you're in Melbourne and in that corporate world again, and you decide to move to the beautiful Sunshine Coast is where we're recording today. You had some friends going, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? What's important to you about the Sunshine Coast and creating a life here?
Yeah. I think it was about wanting to connect as much as possible to nature. And the reason for that is that nature is what grounds me whenever I start to feel like I'm becoming misaligned or getting too in my head. And that inevitably happens when you take on big roles and you get busy and life gets busy. And so I was finding in Melbourne as I was trying to hold on to all of these concepts that I'd learned, that it was becoming more and more difficult to come back to center. And what kept bringing me back was my weekend trips away to nature, and being able to be more present. And so I just sort of had this thought of, well, what if you could live somewhere where that wasn't a 2-hour drive away? It was when you open your window in the morning. And it sounds so simple, but it's made a huge difference to my life. And so for me, it was, okay, where else in Australia can I find where I am constantly surrounded by nature? It's not as busy of a concrete jungle type of city, but I can still find something meaningful to do in my career, and ultimately pick the Sunshine Coast as that place and never look back. Like, absolutely love being up here. It's got those elements for me. And
how do you immerse yourself in nature now? Where do you go on the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah,
don't give away any secrets.
Yeah, my garden is one spot. Trying to turn that into a haven so that every morning I wake up and there's just green there, and then I'm a kilometre away from the ocean, so walk to the beach a lot, take my shoes off a lot and feel the earth. But we're just so lucky here to be close to the ocean, and then you're half an hour from the hinterland where you can escape in any number of beautiful places, waterfalls. So I think it's being around it in your environment, even driving around and seeing trees and the smells. And I notice the absence of that when I travel, and I can't wait to get back home into it. And then actually going and doing bushwalking or walking on the sand and feeling the sand on your feet, like, it just makes a huge difference to me. And even in my office, I've got plants everywhere. I need to have plants around me.
Yeah.
So,
talk to the plants.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you are a high performer. You're very centered. I can see all this, and from your experience, it all makes perfect sense now. What are some other practices? Do you still meditate a lot? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so definitely not 12 hours a day, but I do. I have quite a routine now. So I wake up every morning at 3 in the morning, and I have done for the last 6 years.
3?
Yeah, at
Time
3
to go
in the
to bed?
morning. About 9.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's not that much sleep.
Yeah.
Wow. Why? Why?
Why at 3? Yeah. Why would you do that? So
we had to do a shoot the other day and get up at 3, and so
brutal.
that was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. Are you used to it now?
Yeah, well, 6 years now. It's like I don't even blink at it now. It's just, it's almost, my body clock will just get up at that time, even if my alarms.
Yeah. Wow. So what are you doing at 3 in the morning in the dark?
So 3 in the morning, I wake up. I have to train every morning. So that's my one movement is super important to me in my brain. I'll often wake up at 3 and already my mind is thinking about everything that I need to do in the business, etc. By the time I get to the gym, so I train, and I start training, a lot of that noise goes down. And so I usually spend hour and a half training, so mostly strength training. Otherwise, I'm on the treadmill at home. And that, all the endorphins from training make you feel good. It's good, obviously, for your physical health and well-being, but also mentally. So partially that's to quieten the mind, but then I also find it's really good training for pushing through resistance. Because a lot of mornings I wake up and I don't want to go, like 100%, but I just force myself to go, and you always feel better at the end of it. So it's a daily kind of do something that's challenging type of thing as well. So do that, come home, walk the dogs with my husband. So that's our little family time together.
So when you're coming out of the gym, the sun's just coming up sort of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's in the dark when you get there. It's like a dungeon. So there's a few of us that are the same people that go the same time every morning.
Yeah.
So that's come home, walk the dogs with the hubby, which is then my outside time with family, have breakfast together. So that's really grounding and centering for me as well. And then get ready, go to work. I'm usually at work by 7 and have quite a full day at work. So that sets my energy for the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Epic.
Yeah.
Amazing. What is Powershift?
It's a big change of topic there.
We've gone from peaceful, and you started the day. You said, I'm ready for work.
My day. All right, cool.
All right, we're going to work now. What is Powershift?
Yeah, so our business is in the temporary power space. So it's really interesting. I always find the explaining what we do after talking about your life story and journey is like, how did you get from there to there? So we're in the temporary power space, and we provide large transportable batteries as a temporary power source as an alternative to diesel. So diesel generators have been the thing that people use anytime that you can't get enough power from the grid. So you've either got none or you've got a little bit but not enough. And it was the idea for the business was in response to saying we've got constraints on the grid, and people for over 100 years have just used big, stinky, dirty diesel generators to solve that problem. There's got to be a smarter way. So this is where that sort of innovator brain comes in and go, well, what is a smarter way? Looking at what other people were doing around the world. There are leaders in this space, particularly in Europe, that have been using batteries in this way for 5 or 6 years. So took inspiration from them and decided to go into the space to say, well, I think we can do this in Australia. There's a need. There's something like $5 billion spent every year on diesel generation. Some of it we can make a dent in, like quite a large portion of that. And so it's a positive way to solve a challenge that's no one's really thought about for a long time. So that's what we do. So we rent out batteries to commercial industrial businesses to use as opposed to a diesel generator.
Great idea. What's it like being back in the startup world again? You know, you're back there. You love it?
Yeah, I love it. It's the hardest thing I've ever done by far. Starting a business from scratch, and I guess the responsibility that comes with that when you then have staff and shareholders and all of that. Like the pressure is immense, but the process is incredible. I'm so passionate about it, and I'm really passionate about the process of creating. I just so often I'll sit there and reflect and go, how incredible that from literally a thought, like an idea, that you're now, you know, we've got 12 staff, we've got a fleet of almost 50 batteries, we're all around the country. Like that whole process I love. It's just the process of creating. Yeah. Basically. So
I'm always interested as a business owner, like, and you don't have to go into too much detail or give away secrets here, but like, how do you find, where do you start in finding the next customer? Where do you start? You know, like often I feel overwhelmed, to be honest, in going, there's so many things I could do with this business. I could do podcasts, which I love. Yeah. Should I be in a meeting right now?
Yeah.
Should I be doing
how
proposals?
Do you spend your time? Yeah.
Do you get that overwhelm, or are you, because of your, you know, daily, you know, meditation and the way you start, are you just like, I know exactly where I need to be right now and where my energy needs to go? Like, how do you get that next customer to sign up?
Yeah. So what I would say is it's very different now to what it was when we first started. In the first 12 months of the business, I mean, we're entering into a space where you're trying to disrupt the way that people do things in extremely traditional industries like construction, with a new technology that people haven't used before. And so you're out there literally knocking on doors to convince people as to why they should A, spend 2 minutes listening to you, and B, why your thing's better than their thing and why should I change, et cetera, et cetera. So many hurdles and challenges to getting, like, signing up your first customer. So the first ones are always the hardest. It's literally we're cold calling people. That's how you start, essentially.
Yeah. Hey, we've got a big battery.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
have you got enough power? Nah. Okay, well, what are you doing about that? Or, you know, I'm getting generators. Are you interested in learning more?
Seems like a no-brainer though. I'm probably naive to the industry, but like it makes sense, right?
It does.
Saves money.
Yeah, saves money. That's always the first thing that we had to lead with, is that it won't cost you more. Okay, well, now I'm listening. Because we found that the difference with businesses doing this overseas in countries like the Netherlands, it's all about the environmental impact. And so it was emission savings as the key hook.
Yeah. We
found straight away in Australia.
Don't care in Australia.
No one cares. No. There's a small percentage of businesses, and this will change over time, but at this point in time, that's an add-on, not a reason to change. A reason to change is cost, definitely. And then if you can tick all the other boxes and it's not risky, then I'm willing to try.
Yeah.
So the first ones are always the hardest, but now it's more a case of traction has picked up. Obviously, we've got evidence in the market that people are picking up the technology.
What was it like for you as a founder, that first couple of wins where you got people to sign up? What was the feeling like?
Yeah, amazing, because it's proof.
Yeah.
Proof that we did a lot of research and preparation before starting the business, because we took a huge financial risk in the business. So we had to do that. But there's nothing like getting your first contract and then getting the second one and then starting to see that traction pick up.
Yeah.
And there's also nothing like when you have lulls in between and you go, oh shit, this is really hard.
Yeah.
And I've got, employees' salaries I need to pay and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably one thing I'd say in startup is the pressure, obviously, of being a founder is continuous. It doesn't let up, obviously, because the moment you take your foot off the gas.
Do you sometimes go, why don't I just choose an easier industry or just an easier job? Or why don't I go back to the Guatemalan jungle and just hang out there for
while? Interestingly, no. But the reason for that comes back to what we talked about at the start, is if I asked for transformative growth, this is fucking it. Like, to be honest, you couldn't. I got asked this question the other day. I was doing a talk and someone said to me, oh, you have moved from different industries and you've kind of talked about feeling like you hit a ceiling in a lot of them. And so you moved to the next thing because it was all about growth. What made you go all in this one? And how do you know you're not going to get that same feeling? And I was like, because there is no ceiling in this game. When you're the founder of a company, you can steer it in whatever direction you want, which means the opportunity for growth is endless, which is why I don't feel like I'm going to, tap out in a year's time because I get stuck here and I can't go anywhere. So it's terrifying, and also it inspires me, and that's what drives me every day to keep going and have the energy. It's like, oh, what are we going to do today? And
I feel the same way about, those moments of like doubt or whatever might creep in. Why do I do this? You're like, hang on.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I can do anything.
Yeah.
I can do
it's like a momentary blip, and then you remember and you're like, oh, of course. Yeah.
The sky's the limit.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want.
And you know how bored you'd be in the other camp if you kind of went, oh, this is really easy. That wouldn't last very long.
Yeah. Yeah. And, getting up early, 3 a.m., I don't get up that early, but, doing that hard thing early just helps support that, I think. Okay, that's out of the way, into the real stuff now. And the sky's the limit.
Exactly.
So what excites you about the next phase? Now you're off and running, you got some wins on the board. What's the next phase look like for Powershift?
Yeah. Next phase, I feel like we've set the foundations now. So we're 2 years in. We've definitely had our fair share of major challenges through that time, and we've come through those, which is great. So we've got an excellent team, we've got really good product, we've got market traction. So the next stage is all about growth and scale, which I'm so excited about and so ready for. So it's about how we can expand across the country, into other countries, potentially into other segments and markets, and grow the team. So we've got some pretty ambitious targets in terms of where we want to be in the next few years. And so I've got my North Star, and now it's just about how do we get there, pretty much.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think young Sandra Brodie would say to still young Sandra Brodie?
Yeah.
Sandra Brodie of today. Or I guess what would the advice be back to
the young one? Don't try and fit in. I think obviously as any young person, you try really hard to fit in with everyone, and you want to be accepted and you want to belong. And it's not until I got older that I realized, well, all the people that inspire me are people that don't fit in, and actually I don't fit in, and that's actually a positive, not a negative. But I think you look back and go, I spent a lot of time worrying about I don't fit in and trying to force myself to fit in instead of just embracing who I am and being who I am. And so that's probably the piece of advice I'd give, is that don't waste your energy on that. Just be who you are, and like not fitting in is actually a good thing. Yeah.
You sit in a beautiful energy of fearlessness, and that's really admirable. And for me as well, for a business owner, it's really inspiring to see you live in that space. So It's really cool. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your
Thank you.
journey so far.
Yeah.
It's only the
Just
beginning.
getting started. Yeah.
Just getting started in this world. And yeah, I'm wishing you so much success in everything you do from this point onwards.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I like to round off the podcast with a question, which is just where are you at most peace?
In nature, in the mountains. Yep. That's my happy place. Yeah.
You just took me there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
yeah. So nice. Thank you so much for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the show. This podcast is truly a passion project for me and the small but awesome team behind the scenes. We pour our hearts into bringing you these honest and insightful conversations. But I can't tell you how much it helps when you hit that follow or subscribe button. The show gets bigger, which means we can expand the production and we can continue to bring in amazing guests from all walks of life. Please help us to do this thing that we love and hit that follow or subscribe button. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.